The deafening roar of 20,000 fans filled Madison Square Garden as Muhammad Ali danced around the ring, his white boxing shoes gliding across the canvas as if he were floating on air. The year was 1975, and the self-proclaimed greatest of all time was facing off against Chuck Wepner, a scrappy underdog who had earned the nickname the Bayonne Bleeder due to his tendency to cut easily. But tonight Wepner had a plan, one that would push the boundaries of sportsmanship and unleash the full fury of the champion. "You ain't nothing but a big mouth," Wepner shouted over the referee's instructions, his eyes narrowing as he leaned in close to Ali. "Tonight's the night someone shuts it for good." Ali's expression remained unchanged, but those close to the ring noticed a dangerous glint in his eyes. The crowd sensed the tension as the two fighters touched gloves reluctantly. Something in the air felt different. This wasn't just another defense of Ali's heavyweight title. This was personal now. The bell rang, and instead of his usual dancing and jabbing, Ali came out aggressive, backing Wepner into the corner within the first 30 seconds. But the challenger was ready. As Ali threw a right hook, Wepner ducked and then stepped deliberately on Ali's foot, pinning him momentarily while landing a powerful uppercut that caught the champion by surprise. The crowd gasped as Ali stumbled backward, momentarily dazed. "That's right, champ, not so pretty now, are you?" Wepner taunted, circling Ali as blood trickled from a small cut above the champion's eye. The referee hadn't seen the foot stomp, a dirty tactic rarely used in professional boxing. Ali's longtime trainer, Angelo Dundee, screamed from the corner, "He's fighting dirty, Muhammad. Watch your feet." For a moment, the crowd fell silent. They had never seen the great Muhammad Ali rattled like this before. Even the commentators were stunned. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing something unprecedented here tonight." The lead announcer's voice crackled through the broadcast. "The champion appears to be in trouble in the very first round." Ali retreated to his corner as the bell rang, ending round one. His cut man worked frantically on the small gash, while Dundee grabbed Ali's face between his hands. "Listen to me," Dundee said, his voice urgent but controlled. "He thinks he's clever with these tricks, but you're Muhammad Ali. You don't just beat men, you break them. Show him who you really are." Ali nodded slowly, his eyes focused on something distant as if he were formulating a plan that went beyond mere punches and footwork. The crowd's anxious murmurs filled the arena as the bell rang for round two. No one knew it yet, but they were about to witness one of the most masterful displays of psychological warfare in boxing history. "Watch this," Ali whispered to Dundee as he rose from his stool. "I'm going to show him why they call me the greatest." As round two began, Wepner came charging forward, emboldened by his early success. But this time he found a different Muhammad Ali waiting for him, one whose eyes burned with focused intensity, whose reflexes seemed to anticipate Wepner's every move before he even made it. Ali slipped a wild hook from Wepner and countered with a lightning-fast combination that had the challenger backing up for the first time. "You thought that little trick would work on me?" Ali taunted, his voice loud enough for the first few rows to hear. "I invented tricks, boy. Now I'm going to teach you a lesson." The crowd erupted as Ali began putting on a show, not just with his fists but with his mind. He started predicting Wepner's punches out loud. "Here comes the right. There it is," Ali called out, dodging Wepner's telegraphed punch and landing 3 rapid jabs in response. "Now he's going to try a left hook. Watch it come. And there it is." Again, Ali slipped the punch effortlessly. The psychological effect on Wepner was immediate and devastating. His face contorted in frustration as Ali seemed to read his mind, calling out his attacks before he launched them. The champion had turned the tables completely, transforming what had been a moment of vulnerability into a showcase of his brilliance. "I've never seen anything like this," the commentator exclaimed. "Ali is literally announcing Wepner's punches before he throws them. The champion isn't just winning the physical battle now, he's breaking his opponent mentally." By the end of round two, Wepner was breathing heavily, his early confidence shattered. As he slumped onto his stool, his trainer frantically tried to refocus him, but the damage was done. The challenger's eyes now held a different look, the dawning realization that he had awakened something dangerous in the champion. In his own corner, Ali sat calmly, barely winded, a slight smile playing on his lips as he watched Wepner across the ring. "He tried to play dirty," Ali told Dundee. "Now watch me make him famous, for all the wrong reasons." The bell rang for round three, and the real punishment was about to begin. The crowd rose to their feet as Ali floated toward the center of the ring, his confidence now radiating with every step. Wepner, trying to recapture his early momentum, charged forward with a wild flurry of punches. Ali weaved through them effortlessly, like a man dodging raindrops without getting wet. "Is that all you got?" Ali taunted, his voice carrying across the ring. "You stepped on my foot and thought that made you a champion? Let me show you what a real champion does." What followed was a masterclass in the sweet science. Ali unleashed a barrage of punches so fast that the television cameras struggled to capture them clearly. Left jab, right cross, left hook, each landing with surgical precision. Wepner's face began to swell, blood streaming from his nose and a cut above his right eye. But what made this display truly remarkable wasn't just the physical punishment. It was Ali's psychological warfare. Between combinations, he would lean in and whisper to Wepner, then back away laughing. The microphones couldn't pick up what he was saying, but whatever it was, it clearly rattled the challenger even more than the punches. "Ali's not just beating Wepner, he's humiliating him," the commentator observed. "This is what happens when you anger the greatest." By the middle of the round, Wepner was desperate. He attempted another dirty tactic, trying to headbutt Ali during a clinch. The referee caught it this time and issued a stern warning. The crowd booed Wepner mercilessly, now fully behind their champion who had turned this fight into something more than a boxing match. It was now a morality play about respect and consequences. "You want to fight dirty?" Ali shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'll beat you at your own game and then I'll beat you at mine." True to his word, Ali began a strategic dismantling of his opponent. He targeted Wepner's right eye, the one that was already cut, with precise jabs, forcing it to swell shut by the end of the round. When Wepner tried to clinch to slow down the onslaught, Ali would pivot expertly and attack from angles that left the challenger disoriented and vulnerable. Between the third and fourth rounds, the atmosphere in Wepner's corner was grim. His trainer considered throwing in the towel, but Wepner refused. "I can still take him," he insisted, though his slurred words betrayed the punishment he'd absorbed. Across the ring, Ali sat looking remarkably fresh, barely breathing hard as Dundee gave him instructions. "You've got him now," Dundee said. "But don't get careless, finish him properly." Ali nodded, his face serious for the first time that night. "I'm gonna finish this, but I want everyone to remember what happens when you disrespect the game." As the bell rang for round 4, Ali rose with determination. The crowd sensed what was coming, the inevitable conclusion to a contest that had transformed from a simple title defense into a lesson about respect in the most brutal sport of all. Wepner, to his credit, came out swinging. The heart of a fighter pushed him forward despite his rapidly closing eye and bloodied face. He managed to land a solid right hand that momentarily pushed Ali back, earning a roar of respect from the crowd. But it was to be his last hurrah. "Good punch," Ali acknowledged, touching his jaw. "Now let me show you a great one." What followed was a combination so perfect it would be studied by boxing trainers for decades to come. A left jab that snapped Wepner's head back, followed by a right cross that landed flush on the chin, and finally a left hook that seemed to defy physics with its speed and power. Wepner crumpled to the canvas as if his legs had suddenly turned to water. The referee didn't even begin a count. It was unnecessary. The fight was over. Muhammad Ali had transformed a moment of potential embarrassment into one of his most memorable victories. As the medical team rushed to attend to Wepner, Ali stood in the center of the ring, arms raised but without his usual celebratory exuberance. There was something almost solemn in his expression, the look of a man who had dispensed justice rather than simply won a fight. When Howard Cosell climbed into the ring for the post-fight interview, he approached the topic directly. "Muhammad, we all saw what happened in the first round. He stepped on your foot deliberately. Was this victory personal for you?" Ali, always aware of the moment, looked directly into the camera. "Boxing is like life. It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how much you can get hit and keep moving forward." Wepner tried to take a shortcut tonight. There are no shortcuts to greatness. In the locker room afterward, as doctors stitched the small cut above his eye, Ali was uncharacteristically quiet. When a reporter asked if he had been worried after the first round, Ali's response revealed the depth of his strategic thinking. Worried? No. Angry? Yes. But anger without control is just wasted energy. I wanted him to think his tricks had worked. The sweetest victory isn't just defeating your opponent, It's making them realize punch by punch that they never really had a chance. As news of the fight spread across the world, it added another chapter to the legend of Muhammad Ali. Not just as a boxer of unparalleled skill, but as a psychological warrior who could turn even dirty tactics against those who dared use them. The match would become known in boxing circles as the lesson, a warning to future opponents that attempting to trick the master would only lead to their own downfall. 3 months after the Wepner fight, Ali sat in his training camp in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania, reviewing footage of his next opponent, Joe Frazier. This would be their third and final meeting, already being billed as the Thrilla in Manila. As Ali studied Frazier's relentless style, his mind drifted back to the Wepner bout and the lessons it had reinforced about respect and preparation. "You know," Ali said to his spiritual advisor and friend Howard Bingham, who was sitting nearby, "people think that fight with Wepner was just another defense, but it taught me something important before Manila." Bingham looked up from his newspaper. "What's that, champ?" "That the real fight happens before the first punch is thrown." "It happens in here." Ali tapped his temple. "Wepner thought he could trick me because he didn't respect the work I put in. Frazier respects the work, but he still thinks he can break me. That's a different kind of challenge." As Ali returned to studying the film, news came that a reporter from Sports Illustrated had arrived for the promised exclusive interview about the upcoming Frazier fight. Ali welcomed the young journalist into his cabin, immediately taking control of the conversation. "Before you ask about Frazier," Ali said, settling into an armchair, "I want to tell you something about that Wepner fight that nobody knows." The reporter, eager for a scoop, leaned forward with his tape recorder. "Everybody saw him step on my foot, right? What they don't know is that I let him think it worked. I could have called him out to the referee right then, but I wanted to see what else he had planned. Sometimes you gotta let your opponent show their full hand before you play yours." "So you were never really hurt?" the reporter asked. Ali laughed. "Hurt? No. But I was surprised someone would try something so obvious against me. What happened next wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about sending a message to everyone watching. Disrespect the art of boxing and the art will humble you." The reporter scribbled furiously. "And now with Frazier coming up, your third fight with him, do you feel you need to send a similar message?" Ali's expression turned serious. "Frazier's different. He's a warrior who comes straight at you, no tricks, just heart and fists. Our first 2 fights split even. He took my undefeated record in 71. I got him back in 74. This third one is about legacy, about who truly is the greatest heavyweight of our era." As the interview continued, Ali's trainer Angelo Dundee joined them, adding his perspective on the psychological dimension of the champion's fighting style. "What most people miss about Muhammad," Dundee explained, "is that his greatest weapon isn't his speed or his power, it's his mind. The way he turned the tables on Wepner is the perfect example. Lesser fighters would have gotten angry, lost focus. Muhammad got calm and calculated. That's the difference between a champion and an all-time great." The reporter, sensing a deeper story, asked about Ali's mental preparation. "Do you visualize your fights before they happen? Did you somehow anticipate Wepner might try something underhanded?" Ali stood up and moved to the window, looking out at the training camp where sparring partners were working in the ring. "I don't just visualize the fight I expect. I visualize every possible fight that could happen. The one where I knock him out in round 1. The one where I have to come back from being knocked down. The one where he tries to rough me up or bend the rules." He turned back to face the reporter. "By the time I step into the ring, I've already fought the fight 100 different ways in my mind. So when Wepner stepped on my foot, it wasn't a surprise. It was just one of the scenarios I'd already prepared for." This revelation offered a rare glimpse into the champion's mental approach, one that transcended mere physical preparation. As the interview concluded, Ali made a prediction that would soon become one of his most famous quotes regarding the upcoming Frazier fight. "It's going to be a thrilla, and a chilla, and a killa when I get the gorilla in Manila." The reporter laughed, recognizing the birth of another classic Ali rhyme. But beneath the showmanship there was something deadly serious in Ali's eyes. The focus of a man who had learned from every fight, including the Wepner bout, and was applying those lessons to prepare for what many would later call the greatest heavyweight championship fight in history. As the reporter left, Ali returned to watching the Frazier footage, occasionally shadowboxing as he anticipated his rival's movements. The Wepner fight had reinforced an important truth. In boxing as in life, how you respond to unexpected challenges defines your character. When Frazier brought the war to him in Manila, Ali would need every ounce of that character to survive what was coming. In the weeks that followed, as Ali intensified his training for Manila, word spread throughout the boxing world about how he had handled Wepner's tactics. Several up-and-coming fighters reached out, hoping to train with the champion and learn not just his physical techniques but his mental approach. Among them was a young boxer from Philadelphia, whose dedication in the gym caught Ali's attention. "You remind me of myself when I was starting out," Ali told the young fighter after a particularly grueling sparring session. "Always working, always learning. But let me tell you something important. The hardest punch to dodge is the one you don't see coming. That's why I study my opponents, until I know them better than they know themselves." This philosophy, born from experiences like the Wepner fight, would influence a generation of fighters who saw in Ali not just athletic brilliance, but intellectual mastery of his craft. As the Manila showdown with Frazier approached, Ali carried these lessons with him, knowing that against an opponent of Frazier's caliber, both body and mind would be tested to their absolute limits. The humidity in the Philippine Coliseum was oppressive as Ali prepared to face Joe Frazier for their third and deciding bout. As he had his hands wrapped, memories of the Wepner fight surfaced again, not for the challenge it had presented, but for how it had reinforced his belief in his own adaptability. If he could turn the tables so dramatically on Wepner, he could overcome anything Frazier brought to the ring. What followed that night in Manila would become boxing legend. 14 rounds of the most brutal heavyweight combat ever witnessed. Both men pushed beyond what seemed humanly possible, with Ali controlling the early rounds before Frazier's relentless pressure began to take its toll. By the middle rounds, Ali found himself in deeper trouble than anything Wepner could have dreamed of causing. Between rounds 11 and 12, as Ali slumped on his stool, barely able to raise his arms, Dundee leaned in close. "Remember what you told me after Wepner? About breaking a man mentally before you break him physically? Frazier's still coming, but his eyes are swelling shut. He can barely see you now. Use that." Ali nodded, summoning reserves of strength that would define his legacy. For the next 3 rounds, he targeted Frazier's eyes with precise jabs, gradually closing them completely while absorbing terrible punishment to his body. It was a display of tactical brilliance born from the same strategic mind that had dismantled Wepner's dirty tactics months earlier. After the 14th round, with both fighters having given everything they possessed, Frazier's trainer Eddie Futch made the decision to stop the fight. Unable to let his fighter continue without vision, Ali had won the rubber match in their trilogy, but the victory had extracted a terrible price. As he collapsed on his stool, Ali uttered words that captured the depth of the struggle. "This was the closest I've ever been to death." In the aftermath, as the boxing world celebrated what many called the greatest heavyweight championship fight of all time, few remembered the Wepner bout that had helped prepare Ali mentally for this ultimate test. The dirty tactics he had faced from the Bayonne Bleeder had reinforced Ali's ability to adapt to any situation, to remain calm under pressure, and to use an opponent's strategy against them, all skills that proved crucial in surviving the thrilla in Manila. 6 months later, fully recovered and defending his title once again, Ali granted a rare backstage interview to a documentary crew filming The Greatest, a movie about his life starring Ali as himself. When asked about the source of his mental toughness, Ali's answer surprised them. "People remember the big fights, the Liston knockout, the first Frazier loss, the Foreman fight in Africa, and Manila. But sometimes it's the fights nobody talks about that teach you the most. That night with Wepner when he tried to trick me and it backfired on him so badly. That reminded me of something important about life." The interviewer leaned forward. "What's that, champ?" Ali smiled, his eyes reflecting the wisdom that transcended his sport. "That how you handle disrespect says more about your character than how you handle praise. Wepner disrespected boxing that night with his tricks, and boxing punished him for it. Not me. I was just the instrument." This philosophy, that the champion was merely an instrument of the sport's higher principles, offered insight into why Ali had become more than just a boxer. He had become a symbol of resilience against all forms of adversity, whether in the ring or in his stance against the Vietnam War that had cost him years of his prime. As Ali continued his reign as heavyweight champion, the legend of how he had dealt with Wepner's tactics became a part of boxing lore, passed down from trainers to fighters as an object lesson in maintaining composure and turning an opponent's disrespect into their downfall. The match itself might not have been his most famous, But its impact on Ali's approach to mental warfare in the ring was undeniable. Years later, long after his retirement, Ali would be asked by a young fighter about handling dirty tactics in the ring. Though his voice was softened by Parkinson's disease, his mind remained sharp as he recalled that night in Madison Square Garden. "When someone tries to trick you," Ali said slowly, each word measured and deliberate, "they show you who they are. But how you respond shows the world who you are." I wanted the world to see Muhammad Ali, not just the fighter, but the man. So I didn't just beat Wepner, I educated him. This wisdom, earned through battles both famous and forgotten, cemented Ali's legacy not just as the greatest boxer who ever lived, but as someone who understood that true greatness comes from how you handle the unexpected challenges that life throws at you. From Wepner's footstomp to Frazier's relentless pressure in Manila, Ali had faced them all with the same unshakable belief in himself and his principles, and in doing so, he had transformed a sport often seen as brutal and primitive into an art form that revealed the depths of human character, both in victory and defeat. The Wepner fight, though a footnote in his storied career, had played its part in shaping this legacy. It was a reminder that even the greatest of all time had learned his lessons one fight at a time, turning each challenge, even the underhanded ones, into another chapter in a story that would inspire generations. As sports historians would later observe, what made Muhammad Ali truly unique wasn't just his physical gifts or his unmatched charisma. It was his ability to transform every experience, from the glorious to the controversial, into a stepping stone toward becoming not just a better fighter, but a better man. The Wepner fight, with its attempted trickery and Ali's devastating response, was just one such stone on that remarkable journey.